Okay, welcome to the Milwaukee Bucks on Tap podcast, episode 6. Bit of an emergency podcast because, while me and Evan like to do once a week, we just realized that with the Bucks playing on Friday and Saturday, plus 3 games next week, we thought that 5 games would have been way too many to remember. So that aspect of it is going to change. So the one aspect of it that won't change is, Evan, our Milwaukee Bucks are 9-0.
They're 9-0. And to be honest, I was a little worried yesterday. We texted about the Giannis being out literally an hour before we were talking about he'll probably be playing. I was a little worried, but it was one of those things where it just made sense. You're on the back-to-back late night game to earlier type game, so it kind of made sense, but it was a good game to do it, and they still pulled it out.
And I agree, and we'll get to that. We'll get to Giannis being out in a short minute, but let's talk about the 2 games that we had on tap this week. First off, it was the Friday they played against the Timberwolves, ESPN game, 9 o'clock. Bucks were able to pull it out. We were slightly nervous about the Timberwolves. We thought that might have been our crap game. Only because of the fact that the Timberwolves do have a lot of talent on their roster, but Bucks won 115-102. So let's kind of talk about some of the performances that kind of stood out to us. The first one that stood out to me was Marjan Beauchamp finally looking comfortable in his first, I guess, few games as a rookie for the Bucks.
Yeah, his first real big game. He played almost 20 minutes, so a comfortable amount of minutes. But yeah, 14 points, 6 for 10 on shooting, couple threes. He looked a lot more comfortable and excited out there. He had a couple dunks at the end of the game that kind of flexed it on the camera at the end with Giannis, but he looked excited. He looked more calm, ready to go kind of thing.
I agree with you there. For the first few games, he was just trying to get his feet wet, trying to find his role into the offense. He didn't look overly comfortable out there, especially when Bud was throwing him in the second half. He was kind of just standing in the corner. He was trying to, I think, do too much is the right word, but he was trying to, he was going too fast, as you mentioned.
Yep.
And he kind of reminds me right now a little bit of Jordan Nora, where it's he doesn't know what to do with the basketball except to shoot it.
Correct.
So he's hunting for his shot a lot, which I'm going to be honest, it doesn't bode well for this team because this is a team that prides itself on passing the basketball, sharing. And when you get a guy or two who's always hunting for a shot, that doesn't bode well for a good offensive performance.
Yeah, and the sitting in the corner, I think, makes a lot of sense with your point. I think he does a lot of standing around, waiting for it to come to him. So even if, it's not a bad thing because Grayson Allen can kind of do the same thing, but it's when he gets the ball and he shoots it, he's just been missing a lot of them that he should probably be hitting, which I will assume throughout his career he will make more of those. But it was kind of annoying when you have him wide open, no, within maybe 5-6 feet of him, easy shot, and just miss continuously. But he did look a lot more relaxed and playing, I think, with Giannis on the court and allowing him to kind of run a play through him a few times was, I would say, a little bit more of a confidence booster, having someone who is willing to pass you the ball in situations like that too, especially late in the game when it's somewhat close.
Now, there is a fraction of Bucks Twitter who thinks that he should be getting minutes over Jordan Nora. Do you agree with that?
I would say yes. They've played very similar this year. I wouldn't say a lot more minutes. I would say a little, maybe 3 or 4 more. But yeah, Nora's he's very inconsistent at this point where he'll have one pretty good game. Like yesterday against the Thunder, he didn't do too bad, but that's because Giannis is out. So it kind of makes sense that he gets a little more shots up and playing time. But when Giannis is out there, I think MarJon should get more minutes just from his effectiveness on the court. He's had some big plays, some steals, some just more defensive end plays where he's putting his body on the line more for these plays while Jordan Nwora doesn't know what he's doing when he is on defense or has the ball. So I would agree with that statement. No MarJon, like love over Nwora, but I would say yes.
Well, I think the problem that Jordan Nwora runs into is I think he's trying to be our version of a Tyler Hero, where he's trying to be like the instant offense guy off the bench, where he keeps hunting his shot. Like it feels like every time he gets the ball, he's going to shoot it, no matter what. There's no ball movement. There's no and this is like a good comparison to this. Jordan Nwora plays in the regular season like he does in the summer league. Like he thinks he has to be the guy like off the bench taking shots. Where instead it's like, and I understand it a little bit because they don't have too many bench players who can score necessarily. Like, I mean, Grayson Allen can give you a little bit of offense. You know, we're still missing Pat Connaughton. We're still missing Joe Ingles. So Jordan Nwora is trying to fill in his role off the bench. And obviously we got Bobby. But it just feels like every time Jordan Nwora gets shit. But I will say he doesn't look as bad defensively this year as he has in years past.
No, and I would 100% agree with that. He looks like he's getting better. There's just still some holes in his defense and a little bit on his offense that is hurting him minute-wise. I think overall, I think he's not – the effort being put, I think, on defense sometimes is not showing up that it would be in going after the ball, stopping people, getting back on defense, and then offense holding the ball for 6-7 seconds trying to get a shot up. So I would totally agree with that. It's not bad, but it could be a lot better, especially now that we signed him for another 2 years.
Big free agent signing. Speaking of big performances, Jrue Holiday, 29 points. And like we mentioned before, looking way more comfortable offensively. I think we might have been slightly wrong about the fact that I don't think he should have to carry the offensive load. I think I'm more on the bandwagon that I think he can carry the offensive load. I don't even always think that he can, but I don't want him to do it consistently.
Yeah, because his last few games he scored. I know he's gotten a few 30s, but like it's one of those where if it happens, it's an awesome thing, but it's not something I feel like we should always have to rely on now that he's scoring 25 and up. I think it's just like a great addition that he can bring to us because he's still got 8 rebounds and 6 assists. And I know he had a huge assist game that we'll get to later with the Thunder, but it's one of those things where he's amazing on defense, can run the plays, and when he can score, I think it's just an added bonus, I think, to his repertoire, if you would say. But he's a good shooter. He can hit shots, and when he gets going like that, it's always a plus because then you don't have to rely on Giannis or Grayson to shoot or Bobby to shoot sometimes, or even Brooke too. So it's just a little added bonus.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it was something he did against the Timberwolves because I'm going to be honest. Like when I was watching that game, I was like, I thought the Timberwolves were a little better defensively.
Yeah, kind of surprised me too. I mean, they were 4-4, now they're 4-5. Or I think 5-5 now because they won yesterday. But yeah, it was you had Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns who were the big scorers, but no one else seemed to really worry me. I guess there wasn't like some sleeper like the Pistons we were talking about Bogdanovich. It was just kind of I don't know, some guys here or there had some shots, but there wasn't anyone who was like, okay, like let's figure this guy out now because if he gets hot, he's gonna destroy us.
Yeah, and I agree. And like kind of looking at the stats for the Timberwolves, that's what it looked like. It looked like Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns were taking most of the shots, and nobody else really did anything. And Bucks aside, I did express that fear for the Timberwolves this year is that it didn't feel like that roster in particular didn't scare me because there's still not a lot of shooting. And when you get guys like Cat and then you add Rudy Gobert to the mix, like it just clogs the paint. So you need to add some more outside shooting. And look, I like Anthony Edwards. I think he's a really talented player, but he doesn't strike me as a knockdown 3-point shooter. It doesn't strike me as a high flyer either because I think he just picked up his first dunk.
He did
the other night too.
Yep, they said he had 0, and Marjan has more than him now.
That was a cold play, by the way, for Marjan.
Right at the end, that corner sweep around.
Mm-hmm.
I would say for Anthony Edwards, I think in the future he's going to be MVP caliber, but people are still, I think, figuring him out where he's still going to be like a top player in the league. But he has some of those games where he's not primarily a 3-point shooter. Now he will have games where he can hit a few. 3 for 9, 33%, not too bad, but again, him and Karl-Anthony Towns combined had 6 for 18 from 3, so kind of a good hold off, I guess. Same with D'Angelo Russell. They held him 3 to 15 for shooting, and I really like D'Angelo Russell. He's one of my favorite players, but keeping Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards to, what is that combined, 46 points out of 102 is pretty good in my opinion, because I wasn't too worried about Gobert dropping 30 points at all. That didn't strike me in the least bit.
You see Gobert shoot.
It's really just rebounding for Gobert. He's not a scorer. He's just a rim protector and an elite 3-point shooter.
I was hoping to bring that up. Why would Rudy Gobert? I think they were going on a bit of a run, and all of a sudden, Rudy Gobert shoots a 3.
It was the worst. First of all, his form is horrible. Because I said on Friday how he's awkward and lanky. His arms, he doesn't know what he's doing with his arms, and it's just like a little a flick, like a Sean Marion flick. And his free throws are like that, but yeah, just top of the key, no one around him didn't hit anything.
Everyone was baffled. The announcers were like, why did he shoot? Why would he shoot that there?
The shot clock wasn't at 1 second where you had to force up. There was 6 or 7, I think, on the shot clock where you could have gotten a pass or 2 more. Oh my, that was great. That was my entertainment for the night. Elite.
Oh, golly, Rudy Gobert. And look, I didn't bring up Giannis because, it was another dominant performance. I believe it was
26. He had a triple-double.
26, okay, because Drew had 29. He had 20.
Yep, he had 26.
Okay, yeah. It's a dominant performance for him. He's Drew Holiday. I don't think he could carry the Giannis can. We're good. Giannis can.
He can do it all. It's Giannis.
It's Giannis. He can do it all. I didn't even throw him in here because it's wow, Giannis is to the point now where it's yeah, he's gonna get a bunch of points. That's just how it is. Giannis is not gonna go in the single digits anymore. He's one of those guys. He's like the guys like Kevin Durant and LeBron, where it's yeah, they're gonna score. You're not gonna stop them from scoring.
Yeah, the big thing was the triple double. He's flirted with 1 or 2 this year, but it was cool to see his first. But yeah, even Drew Holiday was kind of close to a triple double too, a couple assists and the rebounds off. But I'm looking more at Drew Holiday's stat line than Giannis's.
Yeah, and I think Giannis now is an insane amount of triple doubles now. Was that 30?
Yeah, he's getting up there. He'll get a couple a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, free throws though were not.
No.
The free throw woes. He started 7 for 8, then ended 10 for 20. It was similar to a couple games ago, where it was the hack of Giannis, the Hawks game, where it was hack of Giannis, and it was somewhat working. But other than that, triple double, solid performance.
Yep. Yeah, and you mentioned free throws, 60 of 28 at the line versus Minnesota. Yep. Not a great free throw shooting performance, but still pulled out the win. Another performance that I particularly liked, and this player has been heavily criticized in the lineup this season, Grayson Allen. Grayson Allen, I thought, had a great game against the Timberwolves. He got chipped to 10 points. And he's looking more comfortable after being, let's be honest, he was like really did not want him in the starting lineup.
No, he was struggling in the still early in the year, but those first few games, he couldn't buy a shot to save his life or just kind of do anything. But I think his sleeper plays were there were 2 possessions where they got the offensive rebound and he was going up for him and he was tapping them back out to the top of the key. Big shooting wise, 7 points. That was Brooke, 10 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 for 3 on 3. So again, he hit the ones that he shot, but big plays going offensively when it came to those rebounds. But he looked really good Friday and Saturday, even better on Saturday.
Yeah, and we'll get to Saturday in a bit, but I know the 3-yard lineup's not here to stay. I am interested to see though when Chris Middleton's going to come back. I'm assuming he's not ready yet. I don't think there's been an update. Maybe I want to say a week or 2 away. I haven't never said anything, so we'll see what happens with that. But Grayson Allen, he's been improving, as you mentioned, the past 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Nice little 10-point performance against Minnesota. So
yeah, and he's not going to be a guy who averages 20 points a game. That's not what he's here to do. But getting 10 points, starting hitting shots is what they need from him going forward.
No. Speaking of hitting shots, the Bucks hit 17 3-pointers. What would you make of the Bucks' 3-point shooting performance on night?
That's like a little under 50%, maybe like 45-ish. Obviously, it's way better than their previous games, even though they still won with that shooting. It looks better. There's still some shots I feel like should be going in, or some guys who should be relying more on the 3 ball with their shots who aren't making them. Nora missed one of them that he shot. He went 0 for 2, 0 for 1 from 3. And some of these guys who are shooting a lot more and just missing a lot more, but I'm fine with that so far. It's a slow improvement. You can't go from shooting 4% to 60 in one game, but it was a lot better than shooting 4 for 25 or whatever they did the other day. But I can't complain about it.
No, and it was a great 3-point shooting performance against Minnesota. Holiday, he shot 4 of 11 from 3. So
yep. So
it wasn't. It was great. It was okay, but it wasn't great. It's 17 to 38. I guess it is better than 11 to 40, but it was just, I don't know. For me, yeah, it was one of those things where
it was the people
you can always step up from here. You can always step up from.
It was the people who were shooting them were the ones who were consistently making them. Everyone, it looked like, made. A lot of them were 2 for 3, 2 for 4, 2 for 6, 1 for 1. Then you have Drew 4 for 11. So that was like their biggest. But if you take Drew Holiday out, everyone else was shooting 50% or 66% roughly. So a lot of those misses were from Drew Holiday because everyone's not going to shoot 100%. So take Drew Holiday's out, it was a pretty solid 3-point game.
And speaking of 3-point shooting, so this has been a point of emphasis for the Bucks this season, is they want to defend the 3-point line better.
Mm-hmm.
They did so on Friday night. They held Minnesota to 11 of 41 from 3, which is 26%. And like I told you before, I've talked at length about the Timberwolves roster. I don't think they have a lot of outside shooting.
No.
I don't think they've had a lot of outside shooting in the past 2 seasons. So what do you think of the Bucks defense on Minnesota's outside shooting?
It was a lot better. They even got a lot of these guys to shoot a lot of threes. Again, we said earlier with Edwards and Towns shooting 6 for 18. D'Angelo was 2 for 8. But only 5 guys on their team made at least one 3-pointer. Everyone else was over 3, over 2, over 1, over 2. So I don't know. It looked really good. I think the perimeter is something that they've wanted to improve on, especially from the Celtics series in the playoffs where they were letting them shoot 53 pointers. So sure, they're going to hit some here or there, but getting 3 of your 5 starters to shoot at almost 33 pointers and not even make half of them is pretty solid for me, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I was watching that game on Friday, it felt like Anthony Edwards was taking most of the 3-pointers. Like Milwaukee was essentially like, okay, if we're gonna have Anthony Edwards just gun up a bunch of threes, we're gonna. That's what it felt like to me, because look, what do they have? Like Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell. And as I've said about the Timberwolves, it looked like their best shooter was that guy who came off the bench, Jalen Noel.
Yep.
Like he made a couple shots. It's just that's the one concern. Like I think anybody would have for Minnesota is that it's just when you add Gobert and you have Towns, like I said, the paint gets clogged, and you have to kind of figure out a guy who's like going to run the offense.
Yeah, and even like looking at the guys who didn't play, they have Bryn Forbes, 3-point shooter. Austin Rivers is he can be, but you have a lot of these guys who didn't play who could possibly be a 3-point shooter, but everyone else in there, like Kyle Anderson's not a 3-point shooter. I don't know, they seem to have. They had a good season last year, finally making the playoffs, and then they just traded all those guys away for a guy who is just a rim protector. So I don't really know like their whole aspect around it, but 3-point wise, it's not looking good for them in their future. But Bucks defense was really able to hold them down.
True, and I mean, look, it's good that the Bucks are trying to improve on defending the 3-point line, because they've been basically really bad at that aspect since the Mike Budenholzer era started. And I understand with this new offensive output, everybody's going to be chucking up threes. You know, Milwaukee has to at least try. To like from the area to defend the 3. And look, we have a lot of athletes on our team. You know, Drew Holiday and Giannis and Chris Middleton, guys like that. We should have been better at like defending the 3 than we were.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that that's something that changes in the future. And obviously, there's going to be games where you can guard as much as you can, and the teams are going to hit a lot of threes, which is going to happen here or there. But it seems like going out of that playoff series, that there seems to have been an improvement of some sort, which I'm hoping is going to continue throughout the season and just, I guess, later on in the next upcoming seasons.
All right, so let's see. We've already brought up the free throws, so we're just gonna move on to the game on Saturday. Bucks
against OKC.
Bucks destroyed them.
So we got no Giannis.
No Giannis. So Bucks won 108-94. And Giannis, as we talked about before the game started, and even I think before this podcast even started, we just talked about Bucks basketball. And one of the things we brought up was the fact that Bud was eventually going to sit Giannis out.
Yep.
I'm not saying he's making up the injury, but I'm just saying to like allow him to get some rest. So he was out yesterday with left knee soreness. That's just basically a way of saying we don't want Giannis to play too many games. It's not load management, but it's like we don't need to risk him against an inferior team. Our other guys could beat him, and that's exactly what they did. 108-94. Brook Lopez, big time performance, 25 points. So what do you make of not only Lopez's performance, but the Bucks as a whole against the Thunder?
I was a little worried because of Gilgeous-Alexander, who is averaging a little like around 30, 31 going into the game. So he was kind of like my sleeper of, okay, if they're going to not play Giannis, they're going to have to figure out how to keep him to not scoring 30 plus points. So that was like my big dark horse, I guess, moment for the game. But Giannis or not, I still think it was a team that they 100% could have beat without him. Even without Chris, I think with Drew being like the only like big three guy out there, I felt comfortable with them. I think the overall game was pretty solid. And I think the big thing that we need to look at from the game is Bobby Portis with 21 rebounds. Absolute dominant in the paint. Career high, I think 21. His shooting wasn't too hot, but 21 rebounds is a lot, especially for just honestly for anyone, even for Giannis. Without Giannis being out, you can kind of see like how different the rebounding game is because he tends to get a lot of them. But big sleepers is his rebounding and Javon Carter shooting well, especially from three. He had 5 threes.
That one in particular surprised me, Javon Carter's performance, because we talked about at length on this podcast about how Javon Carter isn't a great offensive player. He could just hit wide open threes.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, once in a blue moon, even the biggest non-offensive players can have a big-time performance.
Yep.
18 points. And I think, and I called yesterday's game a litany of big-time performances. Because Javon Carter, 18. Bobby Portis had the 21 rebounds, as you mentioned. Grayson Allen, 19 points off the bench.
Yep.
So it was just, to me, like just a litany of just big-time performances against a team that, let's be honest, isn't very good. And I've talked about at length about how they're like younger teams, they're building a young core there.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly don't know if I can really say that for Oklahoma City because research their roster. I don't know how many players I can name. I can name Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Josh Giddey looks good. Lou Dort. And
yeah, he was pretty solid last year. Yeah, obviously they lost Chet going into the year, but yeah, Terrence Mann, nothing crazy. Darius Baisley, again, nothing crazy. A lot, yeah.
Wait,
they played
Terrence Mann from the.
I think that's Terrence Mann. Let me click on that. Trey Mann. Sorry, Mann.
I was about to say, that's a valuable player the Clippers are giving up.
Yeah, nothing big. They have a lot of young guys who are still developing, but being 4-5 for the Thunder to start the year is not honestly a horrible start for them. Again, they're not like a team who's going to be competing quite yet now that they're out their top draft pick, and some of these guys are not as big as Gilgeous-Alexander is, but definitely a team in the future who will be deadly. But yeah, the Bucks bench, Grayson Allen, I think was the highlight, one of the highlights of the game. 5 for 6 on threes. He looked a lot better. Maybe in the future they keep him on the bench and maybe he comes off the bench as their 6th man if that's like a better role for them. Kind of like what they're doing with Westbrook and the Lakers. So who knows? But if he can continue that off the bench, I think that'd be a lot better than giving him that starting role.
Yeah, and by the way, for everyone who's saying we shouldn't, like, not saying us, but I'm saying Bucks fans in general, and because I kind of saw this on Twitter the other day, we're allowed to criticize players who are having a bad game. Like, if a particular player looks horrible right now in that particular game, we're allowed to criticize that. Like, if Grayson Allen's having a bad game, like, that's what athletes sign up for. If they're having a bad game, like, we're allowed to say something. I don't know. Yes, I had to go off. I had to riff about that for a second because there are fans who are like,
well, they got all defensive, and it's like even the player would say that they had a bad game. Where it's kind of those things where it's you can't defend a guy who shoots 2 for 15 and has 2 or 4 points, and it's like, well, it's just he would have done this, and it's a lot of those things where it's Grayson Allen has sucked a lot this year, and he's turned it around these last 2 games. So I'm hoping it continues, but yeah, I agree. It's kind of annoying when people try to defend players who clearly know that even them or they had a bad game in general.
Yeah. And speaking of, well, this wasn't like a big time performance. Like, this is what I like to call like a chip in performance.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Nora chipped in with 12 points.
Yep.
I honestly, I could see him being like that for the whole season. Just a guy who comes off the bench, chips in maybe 12 points,
mm-hmm.
and
again, that's exactly what he should be doing. That's his role, similar to what we were talking about with Grayson Allen too. Again, we don't need him to average 20 points. They need him to just be solid.
And he is, and he's a solid player off the bench. Like I said, I was hoping he would get more playing time, and he has been. He's been doing in that role. I like I said, I would like to see what guys like what we look like once Connaughton and Ingles come back, because I think Jordan Nora is getting what I like to call early season minutes, where I don't necessarily know if he's going to be a part of the rotation once Connaughton and Ingles come back, because, well, maybe Connaughton could start. I'm trying to think about this out. Maybe Connaughton could start. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, they could do because they could swap out, like Carter and Allen with like Connaughton and then Middleton. I'm trying to really piece this together in my head about how this lineup would work once those two come back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm more curious of how they're going to use Pat. Obviously, we know Chris is going to start. But like it's Pat, Grayson, and Nuora in a way of similar play style. Obviously, some are better than others, but yeah, because Nora played 22 minutes yesterday, which makes more sense because of Giannis being out. But 13 on Friday. So is he going to stay with like the 10 minutes, roughly 10 to 12 minutes, or is he going to like go down to like maybe 6 or just not play? So I agree. I'm curious of what they're going to do, because I would assume Pat should be coming back anytime soon. And I don't know about Chris, but I think Pat's going to come back first. So we'll see. But it's working right now.
By the way, I just thought of this like quick hilarious moment real quick. I thought it was really funny when Bud like basically cleared out the rest of his bench
and Thanasis.
When Giannis set the ball out of bounds, Thanasis could come to the game. I thought that was hilarious.
Budenholzer's face was priceless because he didn't think it was going to happen. He just wanted to dribble it out. Just set the ball right out of bounds right by him, and he's at the fish face.
Giannis is like, he is hilarious. Like, he is just hilarious. Even watching him yesterday, like out with his left knee soreness, obviously
eating popcorn, having a ball.
It's just national treasure. I've said this about him. He is the #1 national treasure.
He's living his best life.
Normally I'm not like quick rip about Giannis. Normally I'm not like a dad joke person, but anytime Giannis tells them, I just find them just whatever Giannis tells it funnier. They're made funny when Giannis tells it, because they're like during a press conference. He'll even in Philadelphia when he's like a Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah, the whiz-wit, or the whiz-whiz, he called it.
Oh, it's just like, I just found that funny when he just set the ball out of bounds so that the Nazis would come in the game. Ultimate team guy.
Yep.
Let's see, as we mentioned before, against OKC, 17 of 47 from 3. Not great. 17 threes. one aspect I noticed against OKC is there was a couple possessions where we were getting a rebound, try to find someone at the 3-point line and just gun up a three. Like that's what it looked like.
Yeah, a lot of that was Marjan. He went 0 for 6 on 3. So again, he had a really solid game on Friday, and then they started him on Saturday. And yeah, he had a big goose egg on that one. 1 for 9 shooting, 0 for 6 on 3. So it was again that catch and shoot. But the only plus thing is that they were consistent with the 17. They shot more, but they were consistent. But yeah, a lot of offers and a lot of 1 for or 2 for 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think it was a little too early to throw Marjan out in the starting lineup.
Yeah, it was. My brother even said that it was kind of random, to be honest.
Yeah, because I think Budenholzer was like, all right, he had a good performance against the Timberwolves. Let's see what he's got against Oklahoma City. And I don't like to sit here and be like, he was probably nervous. But the magnitude of not being in the NBA for that long and rookie and being on a really good team, that's not easy. So obviously you saw the performance yesterday. The nerve might have gotten to him a little bit, being 0 for 6 with 2 points.
Yeah, especially coming off of that solid game before. So it's like, ooh, I got to do it again. And again, I think a lot of it's just forced.
Yeah, and like you said, it wasn't. It's completely different when you're coming off the bench, being a scorer, because he can try to be instant offense, and it could kind of work. And I guess it was kind of hard for him going from bench to being a starter for that one game to be what's my role going to be? It felt like he had to try to be okay, I need to get instant offense right here, right now.
And he's just, we've mentioned it so many times before. He's just going too fast. And he needs to slow it down a little bit, because you had guys like Brooke and Javon, kind of Bobby, and then Grayson and Nora, who were scoring consistently somewhat. And it was just, again, a lot of that. Oop, I got the ball. Let me shoot it really quick. But back-to-back, first NBA start, he had 5 rebounds. He had a really good steal late in the game too. So he was still doing stuff on the other end of the floor, but yeah, shooting wise, it was a little, I would go nervous more than just him being bad.
Yeah, I would too. All right, last topic before we get out of here. So the Bucks are really taking on what I like to call the garbage man mentality under Coach Budenholzer, which is they picked up 18 offensive rebounds. Now, granted, again, against Oklahoma City, not a great team, not a lot of bigs in there, but I think it is impressive the fact that we're focusing more on offensive rebounds. I've noticed it from everyone. I've noticed it from Bobby. I've noticed it from Brooke, Giannis. But I think the main components have been the guards. I think the guards have been doing a great job of crashing the board, getting tip outs so guys can get extra possessions. So what are your thoughts on the Bucks' offensive rebounding output?
I think it's something that shouldn't be because again, it just wouldn't make sense to me to not go for an offensive rebound, because it's, again, that second or even third chance to score more points. And a lot of it is with Bobby catching it right at the rim, going up, making the 2, or getting fouled for an and 1, and then hyping everyone up. So it's a confidence booster, and it's just an easier way of just trying a whole new possession again, whether that's the tip outs from the guards and just running a whole new play with 14 seconds, or getting it and just going right up. So it's a lot of points added up to what could have been missed on the prior. Because hypothetically, if you have 18 rebounds or offensive rebounds and they score 9, or let's say 6 of those times, that's an extra 12 points. Hypothetically, if you put a 3 or 2 in there, that's over 10 points just from the offensive rebound. So I think it's super important for them to keep that mentality going and just being able to dominate the paint, because they have the guys to do it, and continuing to do it's could again make or break games at some point.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And like I've said before, Budenholzer didn't really try to incorporate offensive rebounding while he was a coach at Atlanta, or even the start of his Bucks tenure. But now it's like with guys like Bobby Portis and Brook Lopez and like a lot of taller guys there, we kind of have to, because, if you, I don't know, I just feel like a team that doesn't offensive rebound just doesn't win many championships. You always need those extra possessions, so you're not constantly just playing defense all the time.
Yeah, and it's something that, again, could be the change of a game, and it's just a big boost, I think, in confidence and just excitement too. Getting that, especially Bobby, he does it so well. He'll get it, then he'll like walk to the end and like pass chest or like high five people like in the crowd to like get him going. So it's a good skill to have, and I think again it's important to win games in the long run, especially rebounding from everyone, not just relying on two guys to get rebounds, but Grayson Allen getting in there, Drew getting in there. So everyone's doing their part to get that rebound. It's not just one or two guys, like you said.
Okay. Evan, anything else?
No. We got the Hawks tomorrow and then the Thunder again on Wednesday. And the Spurs on Friday. I think we're gonna go 12-0. That's my bold prediction.
That's a good bold prediction.
All three are.
I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait to see. I'm gonna wait to see how we do before we talk about it. Because Atlanta's always played us tough, so I think that could be a tough game for us. So
yeah, the big thing is that they're all away this week, so that'll be their first road stretch like that, because they've only had 2 road games already this year, and they're 9 games.
Yeah. All right, guys. So that's the podcast, and we'll see you next week.